Nick, thanks for joining us this afternoon as usual. Let's start with the overall markets. A little bit of a subdued start to the day, but we saw quite a solid uptick in late afternoon trade. What were some of those big catalysts that contributed to those movements?
Yeah, good evening. As you said, a bit of a slow start to the session, but as the day got going, we had some quite decent PPI numbers out of South Africa showing a quite steady sort of growth. We sort of, when the US markets opened too, we had decent jobless numbers out of them, much better than expected. We had US GDP growth coming in at close to 6.5%. So massive numbers also in the afternoon session. So we took lead from global markets and we closed higher and ran into that finish. I mean, 60,000 back on the top 49, 66,000 on the all-share.
Very interesting moves indeed. Let's move on to some company news now, Nick. This is a very worrying story, and I wonder if MTN investors are as worried as a reader of the story would be. Those allegations around aiding terrorism that MTN has been accused of, a lawsuit filed in New York indicating that Americans were injured because of those monies flowing. Your thoughts on this kind of story for a company like MTN?
Look, it's difficult to get more detail on it, but what I will say is MTN won with a lot of other telecom providers being sued in that court case. So they're not just the standalone, and it's a story that's certainly been bounced around for quite a while now. And unfortunately, with the like of MTN, you know that when you operate in some of the countries they operate in, you know you open yourself up to scrutiny like this. But my experience with dealing with the likes of MTN, they are pretty good with governance and compliance. I'd be surprised if it's merit, but nevertheless, you saw the share price today. It didn't participate with the rest, and we wait to find more detail. Right,
on to Old Mutual now, announcing its intention to further unbundle a 12.2% in a Nedbank. I mean, this is something that they did with that initial listing that we saw. I mean, would it have moved the dial at all?
Yeah, I think it did. I mean, Old Mutual had a decent day today. It was one of the best movers on the JSE. Market liking the story, shareholders also. I think a little bit earlier than expected. I mean, most shareholders of Old Mutual were expecting them to get rid of the Nedbank holding. It's been on the cards for years. It's just a matter of time when they were going to do it. So quite well received, and the stock, as I said, back at over 14 Rand now, Old Mutual. So market liking it, and yeah, what's left of the scraps, there's no point in keeping it according to shareholders, and they're doing what they said they were going to do.
All right, on to Growth Point now. Sure, there's a lot to get through today, this afternoon, hey, Nick. But Growth Point, they are showing some improvement in terms of their operating in the environment. But there's a fear of people who want to return to offices, but they're being held back because of the rollout or the slow pace of the rollout of the vaccine. And that's going to have a little bit of pressure on Growth Point, isn't it?
It is. I mean, sure, who would want to be running that business? It's a tough business. The property shares in South Africa have been through sort of hell and back, but they seem to be getting back on their feet. That trading update today from Growth Point illustrating that they're looking at sort of at least some form of normality returning, although I think it's a long way to go. I mean, I look at what we are. I mean, I'm speaking to you from our office. I haven't gone into Sanlam's office for a couple of weeks now, and I think there's a lot of us in the same place. But yes, I think there's a little bit of light at the end of the tunnel, and if you're going to play in the property space in South Africa, you know, Growth Point was certainly one of the bluest of the blue chip. And I think there's just a little bit of glimmer of hope that they see things getting a little bit better.
Nick Kunze from Sanlam Private Wealth, many thanks for your time this evening.